Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. Okay, so in today's video we are going to be taking a look at how you can find property and real estate using astrology. So we're going to be doing another birth chart deep dive today, so definitely stay tuned if you're interested. However, before we do dive into this, definitely make sure that you give this video a like if you like it. Also make sure to subscribe if you have not already, and to click that little bell icon so that you can keep yourself updated with further content from myself. And just one more quick thing to mention is that I currently have a Teespring. So I've put some Aquarius pieces up there. I've got 5 signs up on the Teespring. So if you are interested in picking up any nice merchandise pieces, then definitely go to the link in the description box below if you would like. Okay, so with all of those introductions out of the way, let's do this. Right, so in this video I am going to be sharing where you can locate property and real estate within the birth chart, but in another video I'm going to be sharing when you might buy or rent a house according to astrology. Though also remember that this is just my own analysis, but also feel free to add any other interesting, insightful pieces of information that you will like to add to the discussion as well in the comment section down below. So let's get into this. The first house that I want to bring your attention towards in relation to property is the second house. And the reason for why this is because the second house is known as the house of finances, resources, possessions, banking and assets and so on. So naturally, property can fall under this umbrella. However, let's not forget that how we handle our money contributes to us buying or renting a home. It contributes to us stepping onto the property ladder, along with the type of money that we're born into, as well as the type of job that we have in order to earn money in the first place. And it's these things naturally that can contribute towards our physical security. So let's say, for example, someone has Mars and Venus in Leo in the second house. That's most likely going to be a very different energy to someone who has Pluto or Saturn in Capricorn in the second house. Maybe the person with that Leo energy in the second, they grow up with more materials, more items, more wealth. Maybe they were a bit more spoiled as a child, or maybe they were lavished more with gifts during special occasions. But then take the person with that Capricorn energy in the second house, maybe they grow up with more of a financial or material struggle. Perhaps their physical security was threatened or torn apart as a child, or maybe they simply learn to value simpler things in life. But then let's take this a step further by applying these examples to how an individual handles their money, along with the types of things that they might spend their money on. So a person with Gemini energy in the second, they might handle their money very differently to someone with Libra energy in the second. The Gemini person, they might be flaky or might be a bit inconsistent when it comes to saving, for an example, or they might purchase materials out of boredom, or they might be a little bit scattered when it comes to their spending habits, or they might have a certain hobby or craft that they really like, but then they spend a lot of their money on these things. Especially if that person has Moon and Gemini in the second house, their emotions might come into play. Yeah, they can play a major role. But then take a person with Libra in the second house, with that energy, they might seek more of a balance when it comes to their spending habits and when it comes to the handling of their personal finances. They might prefer to manage their accounts more delicately or with more thought. Then again, they might also be drawn towards beautiful items and materials that they really, really like, which can often put a dent in their bank balance. I am one of these people who was born with Libra in my second house, and I can very much relate. But then also, they can have the tendency of relying on others when it comes to finances and physical security as well. Now, of course, these are merely examples, and it's also important to remember aspects, though I think that goes without saying. But I hope you get where I'm coming from, because we can't deny that our spending habits, they play a role when it comes to saving for something like a house. I mean, if you're being frivolous with your money, then it's going to be harder to save, right? But if you're being focused and serious and driven about it, you'll most likely be able to save more. However, what I also think is very important to remember, so quite an important factor in all of this, is, well, the economy. The economy, especially given that this is something that we as individuals can't necessarily control. And as we all know, countries can run into economic difficulties at any given moment, resulting in our physical security being threatened, including our home or the likelihood of us buying a home or renting a certain property. Now, without getting too far into this, because I do understand that times are very difficult today, but something to consider with this point is transits. Now, when you go onto astro.com, I'm going to show you just a brief tutorial here. When you go onto astro.com and you pull up your birth chart, so you put in all of your birth information, once you pull up that chart, you can see that there's a little blue box above your chart, and it says on it, select, so you can select it basically with transit. So you select this option, and that will show you the positions of the planets today in real time and how they align with your natal birth chart placements. And what transits essentially mean is they represent what is currently happening on Earth, along with how these current events align, as I say, with those natal chart planets. So to connect this in with property and with real estate and money, remember that currently in the sky, Uranus is in the sign of Taurus until about 2025, 2026. And Taurus is the sign that rules over finances, it rules over possessions, property, banking, and resources. And this is significant because Uranus is the planet of explosions, sudden changes, disruptions. Uranus breaks things and it explores alternatives. And it's also about non-conformity. It's a very non-conventional planet. So could it be suggested that over the next few years, as a collective, we will experience sudden changes when it comes to property? I mean, we can already see this happening today. Or is it that we're living through a period of economic disruption, possibly resulting in people losing their homes or relocating? Again, things that we are noticing today. Or is it possible that these new economic changes would bring, maybe they will bring about more unconventional ways of living or more unconventional views towards buying or renting property? Then again, maybe these changes will encourage some people to seek out alternatives, which might actually benefit them and make their lives better. And so with this also, remember to locate what's happening in your second house along with the sign of Taurus in the chart as well, because the second house energy and that Taurus energy will give you more insight into your personal finances and into property. And then also make sure that you're locating these areas for more insight into your earning capacity. Furthermore, it's also good to locate the ruling planet of your second house within your birth chart, because this planet is going to give you more information. So for example, let's say you have Aries ruling the second house, then you're going to locate Mars, or if you have Cancer ruling the second house, you're going to locate the moon. But you know, going with an example sake of the location of Mars, let's say you do have Aries ruling the second, and then you've got Mars maybe in the 6th house, well, you might have a goal of purchasing a home, but there might be some things to work on within your day-to-day. Maybe you're someone who rents, and so you're working pretty consistently at a job that demands a lot of really physical energy from you. It requires a lot of your time. But with this, by you meeting those daily goals at work, maybe you then earn more money, or maybe you gain a promotion, or maybe you get a pay rise due to your self-assertion and your willpower. And then naturally, it's these things that can aid you on your quest towards purchasing that home. And then likewise, make sure that you're looking at transits that are happening within your second house, because by a certain planet activating that house, you might experience changes within that area. So let's say, for example, you've got Jupiter transiting your second house. Maybe certain opportunities arise, or maybe you feel more uplifted and positive when it comes to the likelihood of you buying property, or perhaps you come into a small fortune that can help you buy property. But then let's say you have Neptune transiting your second house, maybe you start to dream of the type of home that you like one day, or maybe you become more free-flowing when it comes to your finances and your possessions. It's like, nah, whatever. If it happens, it happens. Though another thing to remember with the second house is the location of Venus, because of course Venus is the traditional ruler of the second house. So I recommend locating Venus because Venus can show you how you manage your money and your materials. It can show you the types of items and materials you value and that you buy. And it can also show you that earning potential. It can show you maybe the ways in which you do earn money. And it can also show you how you view your physical security. So for example, let's say you have Venus in Capricorn, like myself. You might be quite the ambitious saver, or you might possess a very serious outlook towards your physical security. Now, it could be that you don't obtain property or real estate until you're much older, like in your 30s older, but that's possibly because throughout your younger years, you're learning a lot of challenging lessons when it comes to money and when it comes to saving and so on. But then let's say you have Venus in Cancer. Sure, you might be an emotional saver, you might be an emotional spender, but you might seek out physical security to ensure that all of your needs are met. It may be very important for you to feel comfortable wherever you end up living, or should I say nesting. And so to feel secure is vital. And if you do wish to buy property, it might be due to family reasons or because you have a desire to start a family of your own. So speaking of family, another house to look into when it comes to locating property and real estate is the 4th house. See, it's the 4th house that rules over the likes of homes, residency, rental units, private properties, apartments, condos, hotels, basically just all things home related. Now, above the surface, this all seems pretty straightforward, right? But it might surprise you just how diverse and just how varied this can be. And the reason for why I say this is because, well, the family or the home life that we are born into, that could impact our family and home life later on. So for example, someone who has Moon or Venus in Sagittarius in the 4th house, they're most likely going to experience a very different home life to someone with Mars or Saturn or Uranus in Scorpio in the 4th house. Perhaps the person with that Sagittarius energy, they'll feel more free, more independent within their family home. Maybe they'll have more opportunities to travel and expand and grow, just with feelings of ease and with emotional support. But then the person with that Scorpio energy, maybe they feel suffocated within their family home. Perhaps there's a lot of tension and there's a lot of intensity between family members, or perhaps they often feel isolated or very misunderstood. Again, these are examples, and also remember aspects, but I hope you can see the two very different energies and just how vastly different things can play out. So if we take the Sagittarius person, maybe they feel more inspired to take on the world, or maybe they travel the world. They actually do travel the world for a little bit, and then they eventually decide to return home, or they decide to actually buy a home of their own one day. And then take that Scorpio person, maybe they move out of the family home as a means of survival, or perhaps by moving out, they are transformed, and so they change so profoundly. Sure, they might go through very extreme ups and downs when it comes to their living situation, but when they feel a strong desire, a very strong drive to buy property or to rent or buy a home, they will do so with a determination, with a mighty force and a mighty resilience. But still, it's that family unit that can contribute to someone else's likelihood of obtaining property. Now, of course, there are other factors that can play a role here, such as work, career, relationships. You know, if it is that a particular individual maybe doesn't desire a home at the beginning of their lives, but then they get into a really high earning career position, then perhaps that likelihood of them wanting to buy a home, then that changes. Then they change their mind and they're like, actually, do you know what? I can afford this. Now I want to do this. Or, you know, with the relationship side of things, maybe a particular individual gets into a relationship with somebody else, and then that's when, whoa, I want to buy a home now. I want to purchase property with this other person. But so far here, we've really addressed physical security, finances, and family matters, which I suppose they do all really play a role when it comes to our living situation. And I'm really focusing mainly on this 2nd house and this 4th house because of the things that they rule within astrology. It's just to try and make this a bit more simplified and understandable for you guys. There's something else I just quickly want to mention before I move further into this 4th house. It's really to do with the 4th house and the 2nd house, and how the 4th house can more so pertain to the type of home that we wish to settle down in. It's the type of home that we wish to really live in and possibly create a family within. Of course, if that is what you strive for, but it's still, it looks at us feeling a sense of belonging, feeling comfortable in our surroundings, having that emotional support and feeling very nurtured from within our home. But then the 2nd house can look at the budget or the money that we have in order to afford that home in the first place. So of course the budget versus the type of home that we want, that can result in many different variables, many different outcomes. And also the 2nd house can look more at materials. It can look more at the certain items that we possess and that we obtain and then put into our homes. But then I also kind of think here too that the 2nd house may more so pertain to how we decorate our homes, how we beautify our homes. So that's just a thought there. Of course, it is Venus ruled, so you can look at the likes of interior design and so on. But also just remember the 4th house there in combination as well, because the 4th house looks at that, the feelings of belonging, as I say, and making a home just homely, you know, just having that safe sanctuary to come back to. So definitely the 4th and 2nd, they can both really play a role when it comes to our physical security and when it comes to our living situation. Now, just as we talked about transits in the 2nd house, well, it's also good to remember transits happening in the 4th house. So let's say you have Neptune and Uranus in Capricorn in the 4th house, so you were born with these placements within your natal birth chart. And I'm actually someone who was born with these placements using the Placidus system. And so with this, you're a part of the Uranus-Neptune in Capricorn generation. Well, whilst Pluto has been transiting your 4th house for the past few years, maybe you've experienced huge leaps. I mean, huge transformations when it comes to family and when it comes to your living situation. Seriously, this has probably felt like a home life living situation reset for you. And I know for myself, it's felt like a completely new chapter because I've had so many revelations and I feel so much more connected with my roots. I just feel so much more grounded and settled in my life. It's just crazy to think to a few years ago to now. Big changes, big transformations. I'm very grateful. But then, right, let's say that you're someone with Aquarius in the 4th house and you now have Saturn and Jupiter transiting your 4th house over the next while. Maybe you'll be changing homes, or maybe you'll begin this whole process of building towards obtaining a home. Or maybe your living situation will change, such as a new family member being born into your family. But remember with this, that Aquarius energy, it's sudden and it's surprising. How fun! Okay, so I hope that I'm making sense so far in terms of transits and why it's also important to remember transits within astrology. But then, similar to what I said for the 2nd house, make sure you're locating the moon within your birth chart for more insight into that 4th house family home life. And then likewise, locate the ruler of your 4th house as well as the sign of Cancer within your birth chart. So if you have Gemini ruling the 4th, then you're locating Mercury, or if you have Taurus ruling the 4th, then you're going to be locating Venus, so on and so forth. Now, a couple other things that I would like to address before we dive into the final house within this video. Well, firstly, Saturn and Capricorn. And the reason for why I want to bring this up is because Saturn looks at building and solidifying, and Capricorn rules over the likes of law, rules of the land, and authority. Now, these things are very important because it might be that you're someone who actually isn't qualified to rent or to buy property, or maybe there's some laws in place that can hinder your progress, or they might set you back, or it might be that you need to get some things in order before you can qualify to take out a mortgage for a house, for example. And then the other thing to mention is Libra and the side of Venus that is ruled by Libra. And this is because Libra governs over contracts and agreements along with law, partnerships and marriage. And these things are also pretty significant because, for example, it might be that you're living with your partner or with your spouse. And so with this, you and that person, you're essentially signing a contract together. You're signing a mutual agreement between the two of you for the ownership of that house off that property. But then on the other hand, maybe you're single with a desire of buying a home, or could just be renting property, but still you are then to sign a contract. You are then to sign important documentation to own or rent that property. So I would say to keep in mind Capricorn and Libra energy within your chart for more insight into how you might play by the government's rules, so to speak. I mean, if you live a life where you're always breaking the law, or if you're breaking contracts, or if you're not paying money that's agreed upon within particular contracts that you sign, then the likelihood of you buying or renting property is much similar to those who are not doing these things. Again though, maybe it's not as black and white as I'm making it. There's other many factors that can come into play with this, but I hope you do get the gist of where I'm coming from. Now, like I said, work, career, relationships, that can also factor into whether or not you'll buy or rent property, either on your own or with someone else. But the last and final house that I want to mention is the 8th house. And this is because the 8th house rules over taxes, loans, shared resources, grants, inheritances, and so on. All pretty important things when it comes to property. So let's jump right in with some examples to really show you what I mean. Let's say there's someone with Pluto or Uranus or Saturn in Libra in the 8th house. Well, they will most likely have a very different experience to someone with Jupiter or Venus in Taurus in the 8th house. Maybe the Libra energy person has experienced a divorce, or maybe their parents divorced whenever they were younger, or maybe they lost a parent or they lost a spouse due to death, or perhaps this person has struggled to pay back loans or grants because they've been faced with very, very challenging situations that they've had no other choice than to borrow money from the bank. Then again, maybe this is someone who is more unconventional when it comes to shared resources, such as them preferring to have their own individual bank account, even if they're married, for example. But then take the Taurus energy person. Maybe for them, there's greater feelings of ease when it comes to taking out loans and grants, etc. Maybe they're better at paying these things off in time, or maybe they're in a well-paid job where they can, or they're good at paying their taxes. They could actually be in a job related to managing other people's money, or perhaps they receive a large sum of inheritance money that can help them buy or rent a home. And as I said, this type of person could be a lot more consistent and a lot more reliable when it comes to borrowing money or giving money back that they have borrowed. So I hope you can see again the two very different outcomes, but then also keep in mind that mortgages can fall under this house, because mortgages are, well, it's money that's borrowed from the bank. They're loans that help us buy a house. So going back to this Libra energy person, maybe they've struggled at some point to pay back their mortgage loan, or maybe they decide that they'd much rather rent instead, or maybe they need financial support with their living situation. And then with the other example, so the Taurus energy individual, maybe the gaining of inheritance money has really helped them pay for a deposit for a house, or maybe they have just greater aspirations towards buying property. Again, what I recommend you do as well with this for more information is locate the ruler of the 8th house in your chart. So if you've got Virgo ruling your 8th, then look to see where Mercury is within the chart, or if you have Leo ruling the 8th, then look to see where the Sun is within the chart. So for an example's sake, let's say you have Cancer ruling the 8th house with the Moon in the 1st house. Maybe you're someone who is happy enough to take out a mortgage in order to support your family life, to support that family life that you wish to obtain. Maybe you're someone who has Gemini ruling the 8th house with Mercury in your 9th house. Maybe you're someone who investigates and researches very, very deeply into the likes of loans, grants, insurance, mortgages, all those things. You research these things very deeply before making a decision upon them. Maybe you strive just to get the best deal possible that aligns most best for your future aspirations. And then likewise, as to what I was saying earlier, make sure you're locating Scorpio in the chart along with Pluto and Mars for more insight into that 8th house. But also keep in mind here, guys, too, it's quite important, is that Pluto rules over the likes of bankruptcy, crime, debt, and corruption. And it's these things that can hinder our progress when it comes to something like obtaining a house. Not to mention, Saturn can also be associated with the likes of poverty and oppression. So, as I say, just keep these things in mind when locating both Pluto and Saturn in the chart, and also remembering transits as well. You know, I just want to hone in on this point that astrology is not a set fixed study. Things are always changing just as you are growing and you're aging. Therefore, it's beneficial to consider transits along with progressions. Now, without getting into too much detail about progressions, they basically show you how your chart progresses over a period of time, how you progress, so how you change and how you evolve as a person. So to just finish off this video, I'll give quick examples of how progressions can play out in association with property and real estate. So let's say that you're born with Venus in Virgo. So you may be super efficient, super organized when it comes to your finances, which naturally can help you reach your property goals. But then Venus progresses as you get older into Libra, and now you're more focused on living with a partner or with a spouse, or just simply living with somebody else. Maybe there's more of an emphasis on marriage and unionship. Now, this does not mean that your Venus and Virgo energy disappears. It's still a part of you. It's still these qualities that you're going to bring into your one-on-one relationships. I'm just simply saying that as your Venus then progresses into Libra, then there's new desires that can come about. There's new ways of doing things. Let's say then you're born with Venus in Aries. You may be more focused on yourself and your own financial goals and reaching those targets. You're all about obtaining those things that you want. But then Venus progresses into Taurus, and then the next thing you know, you're seeking after a more stable and secure life, either on your own or with a partner. There just may be more of a desire to cozy up and to really settle down with a potential lover. And so what can come about with that is seeking out that physical security through the likes of a home or through property. Again though, this does not mean that your Venus in Aries energy disappears. Essentially, guys, progressions can show you how you progress over a certain period of time. And a part of this progress may just very well enable you to purchase a home or to change your living situation. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my very long video all about how you can find property and real estate using astrology. Now, if you happen to have any feedback, any opinions on today's video, then definitely let us know what you thought of the video in the comment section down below. But I really do hope that you find it to be helpful and useful. I hope I was able to provide some new interesting information when it comes to astrology. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button, and also make sure that you give this video a like, remember. And I will be back with another video very soon. Bye!